Hey guys, here on What the Chuck tonight, we are going to go into kind of the matrix view of things when it comes to Chucker athletics. Today we're going to be talking about the NWAC positioning matrix from the perspective of TVCC athletics. So we're going to be giving you certain statistics and give you a full positioning statement for the Treasure Valley Community College Chuckers based off statistics from the year of 2023. There was a statistic kind of spreadsheet deal that came out that year and give you the idea of how things have been going generally throughout that time by statistic like total participants in your athletic program. There's a gender percentage as well in these statistics. So, for example, 50% women in your athletics program sort of idea. We're going to be talking about head coach full-time equivalent per gender and assistant coach full-time equivalent. There's also operating expenses you've got to talk about, and recruiting budget and shared costs. Numbers. Excited to do it for you guys, to give you kind of a different episode tonight. But let's get right into it. So, metrics reference system for school athletics in the NWAC. So these are kind of the main principles of how we give you a full positioning statement, how we statistically bring out a statement, pretty much. So in the metric system, there is a green, yellow, red style matrix reference. So we're going to have, if you look at a spreadsheet online, you got a dot system. You got green dots, which means that's basically the NWAC baseline statistic. So it's a normal statistic at the Northwest Athletic Conference level for an athletic program. You got a yellow dot, which is kind of in the watch area, so it's a little bit unorthodox of a statistic. And then red is a complete outlier. Complete outlier out of the baseline in crazy parts of a graph if you're looking at a graph. Now, these statistics don't necessarily mean they're good or bad. If you're in the outlier category, you could have a very above average statistic for the NWAC, very advanced sort of statistic, or you could have a very bad statistic that should be at a lower level athletic league sort of deal. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. These are just statistics based off of a breakdown throughout the year and how athletic programs look specifically. We'll give you examples of that from schools in the East region, their positioning statement from 2023 as well, just to give you an idea as we go into the TVCC view of things. So, baseline, watch area, and total outlier statistics. First, the first category we talk about when we decide a full position statement, total participants. So if your athletics program has from 130 to 170 student athletes in your program, that is a baseline statistic, green dot in the NWAC. If you have 100 to 129 student athletes or 171 to 200 student athletes, that is in the watch area, a little bit of an unorthodox statistic. A total outlier is under 100 student athletes or over 200 student athletes. So we're in between 100 and 200 for a normal baseline statistic for the NWAC for number of players in your program. Now we're going to be talking about kind of a gender statistic, how many, in this certain circumstance, how many women are in your athletics program specifically. So the baseline statistic is 45 to 55% of your staff / student athletes are women. A watch area would be 42 to 44% or 56 to 58%. And a total outlier would be under 42% or over 58% of your staff / student athletes are women. Now, talk about head coach full-time equivalent. So, full-time equivalent, if you don't know what that is, it is pretty much if coaches are giving are working their job at a full-time standard. So, for example, if you get a 1.0 full-time equivalent statistic, that means you got your full day-to-day workload at a full job basis. Full job basis, and that works for the same way for assistant coaches as well. So 1.0 range, you're at a full time, all that kind of stuff. If you're under one, you don't have a full deal. You may have a different job in the program. For example, our head men's basketball coach isn't just the men's basketball coach at TVCC. He also works with another title at the college as well. But a full-time equivalent, boom, it kind of measures how much hourly base sort of deal that these coaches are putting in, pretty much. Head coach, FTE, per gender. So a 0.6 to 1.0 full-time equivalent is a baseline standard for the NWAC. A 0.45 or a 0.45 to a 0.59 is a watch area statistic. And a complete outlier is under 0.45, putting in the time to the full-time equivalent. So what's that saying is it's a small workload sort of deal, for example, or it's a big workload. It doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad sort of deal. Now, assistant coach, full-time equivalent, 0.6 to 0.8 is the baseline. 0.45 to 0.59 is the watch area statistic. And just like the head coach FTE, the assistant coach full-time equivalent is under 0.45. Now, we're going to talk about some operating expenses that you have to notice when it becomes how much money does it cost to have a successful athletic program dealt for your specific needs, as a program, because every program is different. Every program's got their own struggles. Every program's got their own strengths, their specific strengths, specific challenges. It's a different environment of how things are dealt in every single college in the NWAC and every single college in collegiate sports. You could have the University of Virginia have their own struggles and their own strengths specifically, and then you go all the way across the country to UCLA, where they have a completely different strength and a completely different challenge. Everything is different. No college is the same from a business standpoint, from a matrix standpoint, from numbers. It's a different ballgame, and I can prove that to you just based on how the layout of the matrix system right from this 2023 report in the NWAC is laid out. And we're going to start proving that to you by discussing operating expenses. So per gender operating expenses, the baseline NWAC statistic is operating expenses $110,000 to $130,000 is the baseline. $90,000 to $109,000 is a watch area statistic, or $131,000 to $160,000, and the complete outlier is under $90,000 or over $130,000 spent as an operating expense budget deal, sort of deal there. Now, recruiting budget. How much are you spending, or how much you can spend until you get into, whoa, dude, stop spending, uncool, too much money, are you for your recruiting your specific players in your athletic program? So, baseline statistic for the NWAC when it comes to recruiting budget, if you are spending from $1,000 to $4,000, that is a baseline NWAC statistic. You are consistent when it comes to the other teams in the Northwest Athletic Conference. A watch area statistic is if you're spending $1 all the way up to $999 for recruiting budget, that is a watch area, and the total outlier is you're spending nothing to recruit players. So there you have that. $0. Boom. Now we're going to talk about shared costs. Shared cost, about $275,000 to $350,000 is the NWAC baseline statistic. The watch area statistic is $200,000 to $274,000. And the total outlier is under $200,000 or over $350,000. Now, to give you an example of how different every college can be, these are specific positioning statements from schools in the East region based off 2023 reports. But they could be similar in this range here in 2026, or they could be slightly different. But this is the idea of from a 5-year basis. So I'm expecting not too much change when it comes to a positioning statement standpoint. So this is what most colleges in the East region look like. So first, we're going to talk about Yakima Valley. Based on their statistics from the 2023 spreadsheet, their positioning statement says that they are a participation-rich program with scale-driven costs. So what that basically means is based on a scale, they have success based on scale number specifically as they spend money. And participation rich means that they have a lot of student athletes in their athletic program, or they got a lot of job spending, a lot of workers in their specific athletic program. Participation rich. There's a lot happening when it comes to people in their business from a athletic standpoint. Walla Walla, they are a mid-scale program with elevated travel costs. Elevated travel costs make sense because the travel is insane when it comes to the East region. There is a lot to be dealt there. There's a lot of miles covered, and obviously you got gas prices, you got the bus that they're going to be hauling around. Elevated travel costs completely make sense for a college like this. And we're going to Wenatchee Valley. Wenatchee Valley, they're actually a balanced, structurally consistent NWAC program, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in the perfect perspective, the perfect standpoint as an athletic program. They could be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are. It just means they're consistent based on what all of the other NWAC schools are doing. So consistently, they are successful from an NWAC standard. Big Bend, they are a mid-scale, aid-focused model emphasizing access over staffing depth. So, what that basically comes into conclusion of is they're mid-scale, pretty normal situation there. Aid-focused model, so they're basing staff, the majority of staff numbers, because they're emphasizing access over staffing depth. So it's based on a number system when it comes to staffing is their most crucial statistic as of 2023 in their athletics program, based on staffing, aid focus, mid-scale, all that. Kind of a different situation than a couple other these programs in the East region. Blue Mountain, they are a participation forward program stretching limited coaching capacity. So, again, another participation forward program, participation heavy, student athletes doing their thing, staff doing their thing, all that cool stuff there. Columbia Basin, high participation with staffing stretched thin. So that is kind of a different situation there, where you got a lot of student athletes doing their thing going on, where give you a comparison of Blue Mountain compared to Columbia Basin, and they're two different situations. Blue Mountain, based on what I hear from this positioning statement, based on the participation forward program, they are emphasizing, they are influencing more of a participation standard. They want more student athletes. They want more happening in the competition world, mostly based on participation. And then Columbia Basin, they already have high participation while dealing with stretched thin staffing. So that's another perspective where you show everything's different. Nothing is the same when it comes to specifically positioning statement in this episode. Now, we'll talk about our TVCC view of 2023 matrix when it comes to positioning statement. So, our statistics come out to be our program scale is an outlier is an outlier compared to the rest of the NWAC. Our gender balance, men, women, baseline statistic, kind of a normal NWAC statistic. Head coaching capacity, watch area, a little bit of an unorthodox actuality. Assistant coach depth is a baseline, normal. Operating expenses, baseline, normal. Recruiting investment is an outlier, actually. And shared unallocated costs is also an outlier. So, in conclusion, you have 3 outlier statistics when it comes to program scale, recruiting investment, and shared unallocated costs. 1 watch area where you're talking about head coaching capacity, and baseline statistics, normal. That's 3 with gender balance, assistant coach depth, and operating expenses. So, in conclusion, pretty well laid out, statistically speaking, athletic program. Again, obviously every college got their own struggles, every college has got their own strengths. We won't get into that specifically because that is not for me to bring out on this podcast, because obviously it's not on Google to be looked up, or even if I did know it, I wouldn't say it on here. I'm just going to give you the statistics level standpoint of how TVCC is looking from a matrix perspective. Now, Treasure Valley Athletics position statement, the official position statement from the 2023 view. We are a large-scale participation program with mid-scale infrastructure. An in-depth analysis of our position statement, specifically a large-scale participation. So what that means is a significant proportion of the student body is actively involved in intercollegiate sports. So we have a lot going on when it comes to athletic participation, which basically means most of our student body are in some way doing an athletic participated event or action. That could be, physical ed, just playing a basketball competition, not in a organized sport, or obviously you're in an organized sport. You're playing men's basketball, you're playing volleyball, etc., etc., etc. But there's a lot happening in the athletics here at TVCC based on the large-scale participation standpoint. And what a mid-scale infrastructure basically indicates, it is a purpose-built, flexible, and strategically designed to support a competitive athletics program while serving broader campus and community needs. So it is not specifically for for all athletics. It has to be, it's based on community needs and all that. So it is more of an variety-based sort of infrastructure. And you also have to take into account educational needs, not just athletics, educational needs and agriculture in the area, sort of what is happening in the area, all those costs and all that stuff, and how everything is laid out. That is what makes the mid-scale infrastructure. We have a great number of staffing that's very successful when it comes to the variety of that category as well, which plays into the mid-scale infrastructure category. And it also goes into our large-scale participation, because there's a lot going on in the athletics world. So it comes out to the official position standpoint to wrap up this show of a large-scale participation program with mid-scale infrastructure. Thank you so much for watching this kind of more interesting, newer side of the What the Chuck podcast, kind of a different episode to give you a statistic standpoint of what our college looks like at an athletics level. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great night, and go Chucks.